Cats, what's happening? We had a request or two. People want to know a little bit of history about V&I, so we thought we'd take this opportunity to kind of give you kind of a brief overall of who we are, where we're from, and where we're going.
Our story, as they call it.
Our story. As for me, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and grew up in Hinckley, Ohio, the home of the Buzzards, where the Buzzards return every year in March. I grew up with 4 brothers. There's 5 boys in our family. We grew up in the country, very rural. Went to church every Sunday, to the Baptist church. My dad was fairly strict in bringing us boys up.
I, too, was born in Cleveland at Deaconess Hospital. I didn't have nearly as many siblings as Mark. I have an older sister, 7 years older than I was born. And my mom and dad, well, mostly my mom, decided to take in foster children. She said she was really ill, and she begged God. She said, if I take care of the less fortunate, she said, would you bring me through this? So she took in my brother. His mom was putting cigarettes out on him, and she got him from the welfare. And then like a year and a half later, the same woman had a girl with a different father, so my parents took them in. And we just had a constant stream of foster children from the welfare. And what sticks out in my mind is as soon as they would bring them from the welfare, their clothes were so bad. They were in such bad shape. This was the old days of having an incinerator. My parents would take their clothes and burn them in the incinerator, and my parents would just start fresh all over again. So I can't say that I really had set siblings, but they did adopt the boy and they did adopt the girl. So that added 2 more siblings for me.
When I was a kid, I was taught a very good work ethic, and it was kind of enforced on us that as boys we would get jobs. So we had local people that needed help around the yard, I guess, mowing lawns and stuff. That's what we did. We rode our bicycle sometimes 3 or 4 miles to a job to mow grass. Eventually we got jobs working on some large Arabian horse farms where we did took care of the stalls and helped bale hay in the summer, and painting the barns and the buildings, and that was a pretty decent job with some pretty steady work. But like I said, after I graduated high school, I started on with the park system, and just on a part-time status for a summer. And I liked it so much because it was my kind of work, working outdoors and doing the kind of things I like to do in the outdoors. I asked for full-time employment. I was told they didn't have any openings, but about 2 weeks later, the boss calls me up and said, how would you like to report to work Monday morning? And I reported there with bells on. Well, I had every intention of going to college. I was looking at maybe getting a degree in engineering or architecture or something like that, something in building design or something in construction. The fact was I enjoyed working at the park so much, I never did go to school after that. I just maintained my employment with the park system.
I skipped kindergarten because I was just so awesome like that. And I started first grade at the age of 5. So that put me at 16 in my senior year, and I enrolled in what they called cooperative office education. So I would go to school in the morning and go to work in the afternoon. So half a day my senior year, I would go work in the afternoon at attorney's office. And after school was out, my parents wanted me to go to college. They said they would pay for it, but I just wanted to work. I wanted money. I didn't want to go to college. So I got a job with American Gas Association and went into like secretarial type work, executive assistant type work. And I did not stick at the same company as long as Itchy did. I've had so many jobs, too many to mention. The most recent that I retired from was the local electric company. I was an executive assistant to leadership
I got married pretty young. I think I was, oh boy, 20, in my early 20s, anyways. I don't remember. I don't have a very good memory with numbers. But was married for 25 years. Bought a house in Akron, Ohio, in the city, and raised two kids there. I have a son and a daughter. Both of them are grown now and have their own families. But I don't remember how many years we lived there in Akron before we did completely remodeled the house using a government grant money, and was able to turn that house and make a pretty good sale on it, and built this log house in 1992 on this property.
I also got married the first time in my 20s. I was married for 25 years, two children who are now in their 30s. My son is still not married. I don't think he has a girlfriend, but he works a lot. He works two jobs and has a little business on the side with graphic design. We bought our first house in Cleveland before we had kids, and we knew we weren't going to stay there because we thought once we had kids, we wanted to move to a better neighborhood. Cleveland is not the best place to raise your kids. So we then moved to Strongsville, and we lived in Strongsville, Ohio for about 12 years. And we then moved to Medina in 1992.
Once the house was complete, we were all settled in. The kids grew up. They moved out. Daughter moved out. She ended up getting married. My son joined the military, was 82nd Airborne, and ended up going to Iraq, where he served for 4 years. During that time, though, I'm not quite sure what happened with my first marriage. Things kind of went south. My ex spent very, very little time at home. I believe there was a lot of alcohol involved, and I'm just as guilty as any other party because I was really into partying at that time and riding the motorcycle, and did a lot of riding. I rode all over this part of the country a couple of times, and was really into that motorcycle culture and that adventure. As you'll look back through some of my videos, I have a lot of biker stuff, and that's why I have a great passion for motorcycling and a love for that. Although that culture did lead me down some dark roads, and I have a lot of stories regarding that, but some I don't tell because they're just get some pretty nasty stuff I got involved in, and I'd just rather not bring some of that stuff back up again. But at any rate, I found myself at the house here at the log house alone quite often. Ended up in with some infidelity going their own way, and it turned very, very ugly. I went through a terrible divorce, and I would say this divorce probably went on for at least 2 years of pure misery, pure hell.
The last 8 years of my first marriage, I was unhappy. My husband had a lot of anger issues, and I would always cringe. We would go somewhere, and he would just blurt out things and just be so mean to people and so angry that even my kids, they'd be like, "Mom, let's go before he pays the bill because he's going to say something stupid." So I would drive to work in the morning and think, if I just pulled in front of a semi, nobody would even know, they'd think my brakes went out. I just wanted out. I was so unhappy. It was a miserable life. And it just kind of came to an end. I had told him I wanted a divorce, and he said he was going to file, but he never did. So I finally went to the attorney and filed for a divorce. Fortunately, mine was not as dragged out as Itchy's was. We did a dissolution, but I gave up. I was like, "You want it? Take it, just so I could go." And we put our marital house up for sale. My son, I stayed there for a while after my divorce. I still lived in the house because my son was only 16, I think. And my husband, I would sleep in my daughter's bedroom, and my ex would come and fling the door open. And, he had talked about killing me and chopping me up in little pieces and pouring my body down the drain. And
Going through the divorce was really, really hard for both of us. I think we were both kind of attending the same issues at the same time. And being that both of us used to go to the same biker bar every Friday, every Saturday night, I would be up at the bar with my motorcycle, just hanging out. All my buddies were up there. The cats, that's where we hung out. It was the home of the cats, the home of the riffraff. It was like the worst thing that anyone would ever have to experience. I knew V, I knew her ex, and I knew what they were going through. I felt bad for them, but I was dealing with my own demons and my own issues, and as I said, it was just absolutely pitiful, some of the things that were going on. There was a lot of deceiving, lying, a lot of even stealing, and it was horrible. But knowing V, and she confided in me with some of the things that she was going through, and yes, I told her, I said, you need to get out of there before you end up getting killed. Now, the reason I was very concerned is I knew two other couples that were kind of involved in the same kind of issues that we were, that where murder-suicide ended up taking place and they lost their lives. And I didn't want that to happen. And I didn't want to see that happen to V or her ex, So I told her, I said, we need to get you out of that house before something really bad happens. We need to get you into a condo. And we found a duplex in town and rented that and got her out of the house and got her moved in there where she was safe. In the meantime, I had filed for divorce, had an attorney, and unfortunately, like some attorneys are jackasses, this guy just wanted to get my divorce over with, wasn't really on my side so much as just going through the motions, and wanted me to just give everything away. And I was not ready to do that. Now, you guys know that I built this log house with blood, sweat, and tears from the time that the property was purchased all the way up through the whole construction. And it was kind of like my dream of, what I had always worked my whole life for. And I wasn't going to give that up. I wanted to work very hard to keep that. Considering where I was and everything I was going through, I vowed to clean up my act, which I did. I quit drinking. I pulled away from some of the people that were dragging me down and took a different path, a cleaner path. I did a lot of praying and just kept my faith in God, and I really believe that helped to pull me through and get where I was. But at the same time, V was reaching out to me, and she needed a lot of help too, so I was there for her to help her.
well, as it turns out, I got divorced in November of 2003 and continued working. I had a job that I liked, working for a John Deere dealer. And come the new year at that job, John Deere stepped in and shut down the business. I guess a lot of stuff behind the scenes was going on that I wasn't familiar with. But then I ended up with no job and on unemployment. So here I am trying to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my rent? And how am I going to do this? And I made a career out of looking for a new job. I would go to the Department of Job and Family Services. I would fill out applications. I would go through the newspaper. I would look online. Well, finally, I found at the First Energy website, they were looking for an administrative assistant. So I applied for the job. It seemed like forever went by. I continued looking for jobs until I finally heard from them, and they offered me a job, and I jumped at it. I took it. And then I was able to, once Mark's divorce was final, I was able to leave the duplex and come live here with him so we could help each other.
The more we helped each other and the more our relationship grew together. We didn't have anybody else, nowhere to go, and I struggled to keep the house. In fact, during the divorce procedures, I was told that I could be awarded the house if I wanted, because I had been loyal to stay here and maintain the property while she wasn't anywhere around.
She was fired from her job for drinking on the job.
Mm-hmm.
So she couldn't even afford to have the house.
So, but they gave me 1 week. They said you got to come up with the be able to buy the house within a week. You need to get a loan, whatever you need to do, and if not, then we'll offer it up for any other opportunities. Whoever else can afford to buy it. So V and I. Again, she helped me greatly. We were able to find a broker.
Well, it was the weirdest thing because we were driving down the road and there was this big billboard on the side of the road that said, "Mortgages, call Frank Zubel," and gave the number. And I'm like, Mark, let's call this guy.
Called the guy up, and he was a young guy, and he kind of reminded me of an Italian. Like he was part of the family, you know what I mean? But he was a good guy, though, and he said, "What can we do here?" And I said, "Well, here's the deal. We're about ready to lose this house, and we got 1 week to get a loan." I was like at rock bottom. So I called up this Frank and told him about my situation, that I had 1 week to get a loan to keep the house. And he said, "No problem." And that guy got us a loan, and we were able to keep the house. Now, once the house was mine, the judge had determined that there were certain things that she could have and certain things that would stay in the house. All the appliances were to stay in the house, among other things. And things got so wicked, and she was so spiteful, she took everything. The refrigerator, kind of cleaned the house out. There was nothing left in there. And there really wasn't anything the court would do, or my attorney. They just said, "Oh, well, I guess you lose." So a lot of anger, a lot of spite going on. It was just awful. And not so much on my part either. I wasn't into playing that anger game. I just wanted everything over with, done. I wanted to move on, start over again, because I was tired of that deceitfulness, that lying stuff. And during that whole time, she had actually been living somewhere else with her boyfriend the whole time.
I found his location. We took a ride over, and there she was.
Yeah, we found the place, and after lying and saying that wasn't happening, it really was happening. But anyway, at that point, once the house was mine, V left her condo and moved in to the house with me, and we had to start at ground zero.
Yep.
We had a lot of work to do, because we had to replace everything that was gone, the refrigerator and the bed and just furniture.
We had nothing. It was totally empty.
The only thing we had was the house and the property, so
Yeah.
we were elated about that.
Yeah.
We got to keep the house.
But it was kind of fun because we got to go shopping. We bought new furniture for the living room. We bought new furniture for the loft. I had already had a dining room set. So piece by piece, we pulled it together, you know.
As time went on, we just became more and more successful. V was doing really well in her position with the electric company. Working for senior VPs and under the CEO of the company. I was doing very well in my job. I got a huge promotion as a project manager and had my own office, and was really doing a lot better financially. So we were able to rebuild very quickly, and surprisingly ended up doing much better than we were to start with between the two of us.
We managed to buy vehicles, and we just things that we never thought. If you would have told us this when the court said you've got a week to get a loan, that we would be where we are now. But it was teamwork. We worked together. Even though we weren't married, we were in this together, and we were going to be successful. There was no option for anything else.
I think the both of us had learned from our past marriage that we wanted this to work between the two of us. And I think originally, I don't think we really knew that we would end up together. We were just trying to help each other through a rough time. And it just kind of fell into that, where we ended up together. But I think we learned that the most important thing was that we have to compromise. We can't be self-centered and have things our own way. We have to look at each other and see what our needs are and compromise to make each other happy. And
we worked very well together.
Yeah, we work well together. So obviously I gave up a lot of the motorcycle stuff, because again, there was a lot of self-centered lifestyle in that. You know, you just can't get on the bike and take off anytime you want and travel across the country when, you know, you care about a relationship. You need to work on that relationship, and we have to both mutually agree together on how things happen. So there were some lifestyle changes with the partying, kind of slowed way down on that, threw the alcohol out the window, and got our lives together. And
I don't feel that I gave up anything. I feel that my life is richer. I feel that I took a path to a better life.
yeah.
I don't feel like I gave up anything. I achieved more than I ever could. You know, in my first marriage, I was always getting offers for promotions, and we'd like to advance you here and advance you there and travel and things. But I was taking care of 2 kids. You know, I stepped back to be the good wife to let him go on with his career when I probably could have exceeded.
Yeah.
You know, and Mark was always behind me when I was with him. I would call him and say, well, they offered me a higher position. What do you think I should do? You do whatever you want. I'm behind you.
V's a go-getter. There's nothing stopping her, and she's always been that way. She excels at everything she does. She's a very hard-working woman, and she takes a lot of pride in her work and what she has. She likes to take care of what she has and what she's earned. So I found myself a great woman.
And I found myself, thank God that I have him, because shortly after we got together, 2006, all my health issues started, and it's been nonstop ever since then. I don't know what I would do if I were alone, and I tell him that all the time. I don't know what I would do without him.
So we were together how many years before we got married?
7.
7 years before we got married, and finally realized that we aren't going anywhere. We might as well just get married.
Well, I didn't want to be called a girlfriend in my 50s. I was like, oh, come on, that sounds so gay.
Yeah.
I said, either you want me or you don't. Make up your mind.
Yeah, so we ended up doing a free wedding at the county courthouse. And on Valentine's Day, February 14th of 2010, so every Valentine's Day, Judge Long would have free weddings. And, of course, you had to sign up ahead of time. We did, and we were scheduled a time to go into the courthouse. It was a Sunday. We hadn't told anybody about it. We just wanted it to be quick But we went to church that Sunday, and after church we said, hey, we asked my mom and dad, hey, what are you guys doing? How about if you run over to the county courthouse with us, because we're going to get married? And they were like, What?
Your mom was crying. Your dad.
Oh, so my mom and dad went. My aunt and uncle, they were at church, so they came along too. And we just had a beautiful little wedding. They had like a little arch there with flowers on it. We stood under, and the judge married us. Sealed our marriage through God, and after the thing was all over, they gave us like a little tiny wedding cake. That was really cool. And they gave everybody like bottles of bubbles. They could blow bubbles instead of throwing rice. So it was a lot of fun. And we've been happily married ever since. Now, I guess when we started this adventure with V and I, we thought we would never get to where we're at. I thought I'd never be able to retire. I figured, good grief, I'm going to struggle the rest of my life trying to recoup, to recover. But, hey, we made it.
Teamwork. Teamwork pays off. We work together. If you work against each other, one's pulling this way and one's pulling that way, you'll get nowhere. You have to be together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's our story. So far, a story ending with great success.
And we hope it gives you inspiration. If you're in a tough place, you can overcome it, because we were down and out. We were in a really bad place many years ago. But you just got to be strong. Pull yourself up. You got to just focus on what you want, and you'll get there.
Yep. Set your goals. Stick with it. God's blessed us. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Because look where we are. Hey, we're sitting in our Hemi right now. Our second home. And it's a great joy for us to go camping. Share more adventures with you guys. That's what it's all about. So there you go. That's our story.
And if you like our story, hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Even leave us a comment if you have questions. And feel free to share it.
There you go, cats.